Well, welcome, Julie, to our Deadline TIFF studio. For those people that haven't familiarized themselves with Meet the Barbarians, can you describe it a little bit?
Well, I would say it's a comedy on a very painful subject matter, which is the refugee crisis. I decided to make a comedy, obviously not about the refugees are not being made fun of, obviously, but I'm just kind of having a fun time with just analyzing French people and French society and their level of, I would say, racism, hate, all that stuff. But in a very funny way, because I kind of make fun. I make fun of kind of a big part of the French society, and even people that are overly, empathetic as well. My character, I play someone who wants to save the world, and, So I kind of explore this topic.
I enjoy this film so much because, as you say, sometimes, comedy can be a great way to sugarcoat some very serious topics. And I love the plumber character, who's I am so Breton, and he's not. Even Breton.
Well, it's the absurdity. The comedy is, really about the absurdity of what being hateful is, to foreigners that are completely harmless, and, they just want to be, and they also we see also their point of view on the French. It's like, who the hell are those people? What are they doing to us? So there's a lot of humor to it, but there's also drama in it, and I think there's moments in the film that are moving as well, but I really had fun with the character of the plumber, because he's just so extreme in his views, but really realistic if you know what's going on in France and in part of Europe right now, or the world, should I say, unfortunately.
It was all too realistic.
Yeah.
And the comedy, honestly, I did laugh out loud when, I don't want to spoil the film, but there's a scene where a woman gets revenge on a man using food. The sausage beating.
Oh, yeah.
And I just laughed out loud because the absurdity is a great foil to the seriousness, and you really use that.
Yeah, and I try to make a film that never goes too far into the drama, and it goes far into the comedy, but, I was very careful, the dramatic part, I go into it, but, for example, I don't show what the people are seeing of the film so I try to keep it, it's always on the razor's edge, you say? Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the fil du rasoir. Yeah, it's the same in French. Because I feel like it's very important to find, it's a lot of fine-tuning. And we did a lot of work in the editing room with my editor, Camille. We really worked many, many, many days on just finding the right tone for this.
Can you describe your approach to directing in general? What kind of a director would you say you are? And specifically with directing yourself, when you're acting and directing at the same time?
Well, it's sometimes hard, and I have many projects where I'm not going to be acting, and I'm looking forward to those, because I really want to get out of acting or do it, but not in my own films, even though I have also a project where I'm also acting. I mean, depending, but I'd love to direct movies with me not being involved as an actor, and as an actor, but not involved as a director or writer. But how I work, I would say, I really believe making a film is teamwork. I'm very into the team. I know in France there's the big thing about the auteur and all that, but I think that's what I learned in living in the US, is that having a real teamwork together. And I always love when there's input from, the décorateur, from the set designer, from the actors, because sometimes actors have the best ideas about their character, like what they should wear or things like that. So I love working as a team, and I would say I'm very fun to work with, I think, because actors love that. They love to be part of it. They love to create together. They love to, usually the writing is very precise, but when it comes to the looks, to the acting, sometimes I let actors try something different in a scene. I say, okay, forget everything I said and let's do it, let's just do something different, And same with the DP sometimes. I have something very planned. It's very planned, but then I love to just throw away the planning completely. Just for one take or two takes or something. And you always get, especially in comedy, you always get great stuff when you do that, because it's like suddenly people it's unsettling, but at the same time it's exciting. And people, they wake up, it's like there's nothing more boring than doing exactly the same thing every time, like people wanting you to repeat everything. I just let people be a little bit. I just think as an actor, I learned that it's very freeing.
Ultimately, I found this film to be quite feminist in flavour. The women control the narrative in the end because they have this kind of uprising, and then you realise that they were sort of in control the whole time in a way.
Yeah, and they wake up at times, yeah. Yeah, I realized that after finishing the film. It was like, I was raised by parents. My mom and father were quite feminist. And it happened by itself, sort of. But it was true that the film is based on many, many interviews of refugees, of NGOs that received refugees, on villages that received refugees. And we did tremendous amount of work, almost like journalists, to find out about how things were happening. And what we realized is that women were very often, not always, but the trend was towards women adapting faster, wanting to welcome refugees more than men, less threatened by new people coming in, somehow more adaptable. I'm not saying it's a generality. They were great men as well, or, but we felt women were really the moving pieces of this humanitarian thing about receiving people. And often within the refugees, women were more able to adapt faster. Not that men didn't adapt, they did, but it was a little harder to let go of being a surgeon and suddenly being a driver. Their position was, less than what in their country was. It was in their country, so they felt a little more uncomfortable with that. And I'm describing, the film is set in the very beginning of their settling. So, but then you see that the men eventually adapted too. But I love the idea that women, move, the surviving instinct, and I hate the word instinct to describe women, but there is something in women that is about, okay, if I need to work and pick up artichokes for a living, I will do it, even though I'm a graphic designer, So we found that in the interviews a lot. So that's why we did it that way, in a way.
I feel like ultimately the film ends with a message of hope. Your character is working in a refugee camp, and that was really what she wanted. She wanted to find a way to genuinely help. And as you say, she's sort of almost a caricature of someone who is sort of crying at the sadness of other people.
Of the people's pain, yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
But ultimately it's hopeful because everybody does find their place.
Well, they find their trouver sa voie, they find their calling, and I think a friend even tell her at one point, is like, if you were really wanting to help people, you wouldn't be here, helping a couple of people, you would be somewhere else, because there's, so at the same time, I think the ending is hopeful, but at the same sad, because you see this refugee camp that is 80,000 people. It's a real refugee, obviously.
Where was that?
We shot at the border of... it's in Jordan, but at the border of Syria. You can see the border at the end of the shot. It's really intense to see, people in the status of refugee, because they're not Jordan. They don't have a Jordan passport. They're Syrian, but they can be in their country. The status of refugee is a pretty much a very difficult thing, especially in a refugee camp. They're locked in. They can't get out. Some of them are allowed to work outside, but they're basically inside.
That final shot is incredibly poignant when you slowly pan out, and it's just this huge, endless sprawl.
Well, it's giant, I know we drove for hours throughout the camp. It's a special experience. We shot it before we shot the film, and it was intense. Yeah.
My last question for you: what do you have planned next?
I have a few films that I've written many things. I have films that I've never been able to make, but now things are. I don't know. I feel like it's a good time for certain kind of stories and stuff, and I'm having good kind of open doors at this point. So I'm exploring right now, but I'm probably going to make a film. I'm not going to wait 10 years to make a film. I'm going to make a film next year. That's
Great.
For sure.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I really enjoyed this film.
Oh, really? Thank you.
Thank you,
so
and have a
much.
wonderful festival.
Thank you.